everybody. Thanks to you all for attending this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Task Group Select Move 2021. I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the Committee, and Councillor Sarah Ainsworth is Vice Chair. Please note the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. Members in the chamber, when you want to speak, please raise your hand to indicate to me that you do want to do so. When I invite you to speak, please switch your microphone on and turn it off when you finish speaking. If you join in the meeting via Teams, use the raise hand function on your iPad to indicate you wish to speak. Technology fails, I'll adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue. If it isn't possible, we'll set a new date and time. Please, can everyone ensure their phones are turned to silent? We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarm goes off, it's real. Okay. Moving on to any apologies?
There's been no apologies, Chair.
No apologies, excellent. Minutes of the meeting, 25th of July, pages 3 to 6 in the pack. Are there any issues with accuracy? Are we okay with those then? Everybody happy with that? Okay, so is it always said that those minutes are approved? Right, thank you. Moving swiftly on. I don't think it'll all go as quickly as this. Just turn over. Any declarations of interest from anyone? No? Getting on to the bones of the meeting now. The Select Move survey results. John James is going to present and highlight the key findings from this. So I'm sure we'll have questions for him. I know I have. Okay. Anybody want to comment before John James, or should we let him start? Okay.
Well, thank you for inviting me to present today. I'm going to go through the report presenting the initial high-level findings from the Select Move survey, and this is all based on the quantitative findings. So just to introduce you to myself, I'm John James Martin, and I'm the Performance and Policy Officer here at Chorley Council. So I was asked to assist back in March. In February, the Select Move Task Group commissioned in order to sort of better understand the experiences of Select Move customers. So they determined 3 areas that we needed to focus on to try and get feedback. That included the housing process, the website, and sort of experiences with support and assistance. So the survey was conducted digitally on our digital consultation platform, Citizen Space, with paper copies available on request. We didn't get any requests for paper copies on this survey. And this is in line with our current consultation framework policy. So the survey lasted for 4 weeks from the 1st of July until the 29th of July. And this was emailed to every customer who used Select Move between April 2019 and March 2022. And this was really to capture both sort of pre-pandemic experiences as well as post-pandemic experiences. So this represented around 2,652 customers. So if I draw your attention to the actual results themselves, so just into the response rate, we got 114 responses, and that represents a 4.2% response rate and a non-response bias of 95.8%. And that suggests that we really do need to treat the results with caution, as it's not a representative sample, but it does provide some sort of insight into those customers who did answer sort of their experiences.
Can I just, sorry, John, yeah, just one thing. Yeah, I know it's a small rate, but it to me it's indicative. And we never expect a vast number of people to respond. I was quite pleased with the number that did in such a short period. So I just add that.
Yeah, just in terms of like, just into the lessons learned, if you did want to get the response rate up, some surveys have incentives, vouchers and things like that. So that's something to think about if we ever did do sort of a consultation of this size again. So just getting down to sort of the real sort of high level findings, just in terms of the satisfaction figures, the 4% of participants were sort of dissatisfied with the select move process in general. But just in terms of the experience of the website, the majority of respondents were satisfied, and also the majority of respondents were satisfied with the actual assistance they received when it was requested. And then there's other little details that we also sort of picked up from sort of the property size that people were looking for, and those sort of details. But generally, the key focus here is the satisfaction. So just to provide like an overall sort of summary, we can't say with confidence that the survey results are representative, but it does offer a valuable insight into those that are unsatisfied with the system and process. And it's been a useful exercise from that perspective. So as I just mentioned again, the overall sort of majority of respondents said they were dissatisfied with the process, but the website easy to were really satisfied with the actual assistance received. So just in terms of sort of handing over it to the floor for discussion, I will be able to answer any questions in terms of the actual survey process itself, and Rachel Stewart and Lisa McCormick from Housing Solutions will be able to answer sort of any questions relating to the select move process specifically. So I'll hand it over, and thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm glad we got the results in the end. It seemed to be a long time coming. I'm going to hand it over to the other councillors first for any comments from them, because I've got quite a list here, but they might cover more than I do. So, any comments from anybody? Come on, Kim. Don't be shy.
Where do I start?
Well, I'm a bit like that, yeah. We'll start with question 1. That seems to be the... I've done my comments in order on the result, but it's up to you, whatever.
I suppose, well, I was looking at question 10 around the website, because I think you just made a comment that a lot of, statistically, people were happy with the website, but there seemed to be quite a lot of reference about how hard it was to be used on mobile devices, and whilst the highest percentage of people registering for the system and bidding on the system were via mobile devices, that it was a lot harder and a lot less accessible to navigate on a mobile device. I just wonder, given, less and less people having laptops and, with the cost of living crisis and so forth, whether or not it could be a recommendation to try and to improve the Select Move website in terms of its functionality on mobiles. Thank you.
Can I just add to that? I noticed quite a few people said it was difficult to go back and refer back to things, especially if they're using it on a mobile. So that's not... It puts people off using things when you can't do it. It's not helpful. So I think it perhaps is something they need to look at. Jennifer, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just to say that's exactly what's happening. Civica are the people who run, I'm sure it's Civica, who run the Select Move database. They are updating it as we speak, and that is one of the main reasons why they're updating it, to make it a lot more user-friendly on handheld devices, including iPads, iPhones, and other digital devices, so people are able, because a lot of people, they're not going to have access to computer anymore or laptops, because most people invest in sort of handheld technology now. So that's exactly how it's going to be designed, and people are going to be able to maneuver around it a lot quicker. So that's exactly what they're doing. I'm not sure on the time frame. Lisa, do you know, have you got the time frame from Civica when that, or Rachel, when that's going to be finished, the update?
Sorry. I think it was looking around October. So we've just had like some specification meetings on that. But yeah, it was one of the main improvements that's going to be with the upgrade, and that's the mobile devices.
Well, reading some of the comments, I think it's not before time, really. It certainly is something that needs to get. And also to remember that some people, particularly elderly people, even though I don't class myself into that, aren't au fait with computers and still prefer to talk to people face to face. And I think is still an issue, and I think we need to bear that in mind as well. Okay, Councillor Ainsworth.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking at some of the responses on the survey, and there's a lot around communication. I'm just wondering how users of Select Move and the council communicated through. Is it more by the phone or by an email system? Thank you.
Who would like to come in on that one? Okay, Lisa.
Hi, yeah, they can communicate, usually there's some client messages that can be done via their account on Select Move. We have, obviously, in Charlie, had a bit of a backlog on those, which are completely up to date now. So we do have quite a lot of different avenues that they can contact, and that's email, phone in, and then the client messages. So, you know, as you're aware, I think with Charlie, there's been a lot of staffing issues over the last, 12 months. So, but everything in regards to all those three avenues now are being dealt with on a daily basis.
Well, I'm going to comment on that. I mean, I've got one of those things with poor and a lack of communication. If people get through, it seems to be okay if they get somebody to talk to. But the issue seems to be, to me, is getting somebody to help or to talk to people. There's a lot of people who are saying, I've emailed and no response at all. Well, if there's nobody there, they should be getting a response that said somebody will get back to you. So that's easy enough to set up. And it seems to be, from a lot of the responses, not happening. Either Rachel or Lisa, who wants to go first?
Yeah, it was just to follow on from what Lisa had said, really, and that was definitely a problem in previous months. There shouldn't be anybody currently who's saying that they're not receiving a response, whether they phone us, email us, or email via the website, you know, the client message function, because they are all being dealt with almost in real time by duty officers now that we've got the staff capacity. But what I would also say is, on top of all of this, we've had permission to recruit to a Select Move advisor post. So that will be a dedicated resource to process the applications that are coming in for Chorley as one of the processing partners. And we also anticipate that that person would be able to provide the additional support to people who need it.
Yeah, can I just come in before we were told that at the beginning of the process that there'd be a Select Move advisor in post. That was the person we thought we were going to be able to speak to, and you didn't tell us that at the beginning. I was under the illusion or impression or whatever that person would be in post and we could speak to them. I don't know if the other councillors are of the same opinion, but
no, that's Lisa's post. So the post we were speaking about at the beginning of the Scrutiny Task Group was the coordinator post, and that's Lisa, who is now in post. This is another additional post on top that we've had gone out for permission for in the last 6-8 weeks and gained approval for to fill the post.
Councillor Howard sat behind me and I must forget. Sorry. Okay, Terry.
Just a question, please, to clarify something that seems a bit inconsistent to me. And I must admit, I've not had a great deal of time to look at this. But from what was said at the beginning, it appears that customers were satisfied with the assistance received, but less so with the actual outcome of what they were looking for to be satisfied. Now, what strikes me there is it an excess of demand in the system that is actually causing those problems?
Does that?
I'll let Jennifer speak.
So yes, so as you can see from the survey, a lot of people like the select move process. They've got the support they need, but the outcome is not what they wanted. You know, so the outcome, you know, is not sitting on a waiting list for 12 months for a property when, you know, when people are on that waiting list, you know, that's the average length of time. So I think from reading in between the lines, that that is the main reason why people are dissatisfied with the process, because the outcomes aren't as quick as we'd want them to be, not by a long way.
I'm going to comment again. My reading of the report, I don't agree with that, because it's the comments about its length of time, it's things like that. It's not always the outcome. In some cases it was, but it's the length of time to get registered, to get onto Select Move and things like that that seem to be an issue. I don't know what other members think, but that was my interpretation. James, Councillor Neville.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think on that note, like many of the responses we've got are going to be people that have not completed the process.
Yes, yeah.
Many of these, as the results show, 46% waiting over a year. Well, how many have been waiting 2 or 3 years? These are the people that are responding to the survey, and they're just in a spiral of despair with it. It's, you know, these are the people that are dissatisfied. So again, I'd echo what Councillor Molyneux said. They haven't got to the end of this. It's not about the outcome. The fact is that people are waiting 2-3 years at the same time that we've got new properties being added all of the time, which is of course a good thing for the process, but that's doing absolutely nothing for those people that have been waiting 2 or 3 years. So there's that mismatch between people who've been waiting a darn long time, and yet the system is seemingly working, that we have a shortage of properties, but the website isn't vacant of them, and yet we've got people waiting 3 years. It seems ludicrous. Thanks, Chair.
Rachel?
Yeah, just in response to that, it's coming back to the explanation that Andy Gale gave at the last Scrutiny Task Group meeting, is that it's not a waiting list, it's a housing register, a housing need register. So you can have people who will be waiting longer than others if they're in a lower priority need group in line with the policy, and that is going to be a reason why people are dissatisfied with the outcome, because the outcome is that they haven't been housed yet.
I think, playing devil's advocate, I think that at that meeting, the last meeting we had, when we discussed that, hopefully when the results of that come out, that things will be made clearer for people, because we've said that it isn't clear for people. I'm worried about a lot of the people who have responded, mentioned mental health issues, and they are not helped by the process. It's exacerbating the problem. And another thing that really worried me about looking at it was there were a few responses that said about people who were suffering domestic violence, domestic abuse, who I thought kind of went to the top of the register and that wasn't happening, and they have been injured as a result of other issues. And that worried me, you know, in the survey, to be fair. Okay.
Yeah, just to say, obviously we need to do the deeper delve on the survey results and look at those queries, because that shouldn't be the case. If somebody has got an evidence of domestic abuse, then they would go into a high priority need category. So we would need to look at those cases individually.
Yeah, but as I say, it came up a few times in the responses. Jennifer?
Just to say, the council has appointed a domestic abuse coordinator. So that role came in, I think the lady started last month. So part of her role will be working with Lisa and looking at the allocations policy, looking at the work we're doing on housing, The legislation has changed on housing victims of domestic abuse. So anybody anywhere in the country can apply to the council. They don't need to have any links to Chorley, so they don't need to have a local link. So there is quite a lot of support mechanisms that are in place for victims of domestic abuse. But we have got the coordinator who's going to review all the policies and procedures in light of, in relation to housing and the allocations policy.
Thanks. Any more? Councillor Snape.
Yeah, I just want to just in terms of coming back to the initial comments about sort of setting people's expectations and so forth. Like, do you, or managing people's expectations, do you monitor sort of things like how long it is taking to house people that are in Band A priority? Because I mean, I get what Rachel was saying, that there will be individual circumstances for each different scenario that crops up, but it was on there a few times. I think there was a few instances where people said that they were sort of statistically deemed homeless, but that they'd made 400 bids and things like that, and that they'd only got up to priority 1 on one of those bids. I just wondered, do you have any, are there any like performance indicators for Select Move or for the council in terms of how long it's taken to house people that are in that priority? And my other one was just coming back to, because again it came up several times, just coming back to the initial points about how long it takes. I mean, I know you've said earlier on about having previously had staffing issues and stuff, and that you're now more up to date. But do you set people's expectations? Are the targets and stuff around how long it should take for registrations to be processed, and how long it should take to get back to people within? And do you monitor all that? So I don't think I've ever seen any information, you know, is it 3 days, 10 days, or... Because I know I've raised a couple of cases in the past with Rachel where people have not had any reply and things like that. So obviously that adds to the frustration, as well as the fact that they've not got a house at the end of it. Thanks.
Okay. Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, when an application comes in online, they will get a response soon enough straight away, like within the first, like usually it's within the first 2 to 3 days. But they'll get an acknowledgement letter to say that we've received their application. And it will depend on how quick we then get that information back. So, and depend what information we're asking for. So like ID and things like that will then depend on how quick we can then assess an application to make it active. But like I've mentioned previously, there has been a bit of a backlog, which we're now getting up to date with. So they should be being processed a lot quicker.
Okay, thank you. Hasina, you wanted to say something.
Hi, good evening. Yes, it's a question for Jennifer. Going back to victims of domestic abuse, what is our stand at Chorley Council for victims of domestic abuse who have no recourse to public funds? I have a big challenge and a task each time I have a constituent with that kind of an issue. And how do we support them? Or do we support them? Because they always tell me we can't do anything as a Chorley Council. We definitely need to look at that. It's getting bigger and bigger, this issue, no recourse to public funds. And there are funds out there that we could, as a council, probably bid for to support these victims.
Yeah, it is a difficult one because the legislation is written that we don't support people with no recourse to public funds. So it's not a matter of should we, it's a matter of we shouldn't. You know, that's the way the legislation is written, that we shouldn't be supporting people with no recourse to public funds. But I think from a Chorley Council point of view, we do take each case on its merits. And we don't have a blanket ban on us never supporting somebody with who's got no recourse to public funds. But it is very difficult and challenging, and it would need a political decision, I would have imagined, if we are going to go against legislation and support people. We have had cases in the past where we have supported people, but we've had to have permission to do that because we're not following the policy or the legislation when we do.
Thank you.
Any other? Councillor Snape? Yeah,
I'm getting into it now.
yes, I knew you would.
Medical evidence from GPs, I think that was referenced once, but I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but was there a change or something with the select move policies a few years ago where at one time they used to accept documentation or some form of letter from a GP to say that an individual had medical issues or medical problems that would then warrant the need for a particular type of property or a particular priority for a property? And has that changed over the last few years? Thank you.
Lisa? You're muted, Lisa.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, we do accept GP letters. We did realise that occupational therapist assessments, when we've asked for those, they can take a very long time. So if a GP did outline that the property was unsuitable, then we would take that into consideration and use that to assess the medical information.
So is that across the whole, every partner that's signed up to Select Move, or is that just Chorley Council?
Well, that's one of the things that I will be looking at in regards to consistencies across the partnership of how we assess applications. So it is on my to-do list in regards to getting some consistency across the board.
Can I just come back? Because I think that's massive, because I know we've had reports of people in Adlington that have been told that you can't actually go to your direct GP because your direct GP is seen as having a interest in, oh well, if he's her GP, then of course he's going to give her the letter that she wants. So that's interesting. I think that's really important to have consistency, to be honest. Thank you.
Rachel?
Yeah, just something that Lisa might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, because she's much closer to the new drafting policy than I am. But I think there's guidance as well going to be within the new policy in terms of appendices to the new policy, and that will be across the whole partnership for basically giving more detailed guidance to processing partners on what medical need looks like, and breaking that down a bit more so it's more easy to understand for customers and easy to understand for the officers who are processing the applications.
Asina, have you another question, or is that an old hand?
It's an old hand, sorry.
Anyone else? Anything they want to add?
Sorry, last one. There was a point about less than £1,000 in arrears, and that it was different. There was different expectations or different requirements with different landlords. I just wondered, should it not be the same across the piece if people are applying for houses through one system? Should that not be something that the council should be pushing for, rather than, because it's about setting people's expectations, isn't it, and not getting the hopes up, and then they realise that one registered social landlord has one rule and one has another. Thanks.
I see a recommendation there. Lisa? Muted again.
Apologies. Do you mean requested that some partners request landlord references, or some? Is that what you was meaning, or some?
It was £1,000 in arrears, so I presume rent arrears.
Yeah.
But it was implying that some registered social landlords say £1,000 and others say more and others say less as a minimum requirement to get a tenancy with them.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And this should be, all the partners should be abiding by the same policy. Again, with consistencies across the partnership, it is something that we'll be looking into. And again, especially with the review on the new policy.
Okay. I've got Sarah and then James. Sarah?
Thanks, Chair. I'm just coming back to the communication thing again. It's more of a comment really than a question. There does seem to be an issue, and it does need, I think, communication does need to be improved between Select Move users and the council. And it may just be worth just seeing how people want to be contacted, whether they want to be contacted by phone or email, just what's best for the user, really.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because there do seem to be a lot of inconsistencies with communication. Some people are saying it's excellent, and then it's the polar opposite. And it shouldn't be. They should be getting that service all the time.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Mine was a question as well. So under point 14 of the initial findings report, I know so far we've sort of discussed that when people require assistance, that generally that assistance is quite positive, but nevertheless, the figures are showing that between 47 and 48% of people who do need that assistance are dissatisfied with it. So what sort of parameters can we put in place to ensure that the support that this council is giving to Select Move providers, taking into account the fact that this survey is showing that 75% of them are women, a majority are single, and 41% of them are disabled. What parameters can we put in place to ensure that that assistance is up to scratch? Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Rachel.
Yeah, so I think we've probably already covered it in other points really around the fact that we've got more staff capacity in the team already, and then we're going to be inputting a dedicated resource just to Select Move processing and queries and support. Lisa's also done some other work as part of the recommendations from the 2014 report in improving digital access, and that's also being picked up strategically with the Communities Directorate and their digital offer. And then outside of that, Lisa's also working with the partners in terms of those operational issues and inconsistencies with how they're providing support to their customers. I know we raised it in a previous scrutiny task group with the landlord partners, and we asked them what they were doing to support people who needed it with the application process. And Lisa can pick that up as part of her role as well.
Okay, yeah. James again.
Yeah, I'll just make one point that I was a bit concerned about going into this, that with other things we can be too focused on the digital side. Just 7% of all respondents said they needed digital support, and of those that needed assistance, only 18% of them needed digital support. So I think there's a risk coming out of this group that, yes, we need more support in the digital front, particularly with that, the disconnect between the mobile and the desktop site. However, when it comes to people needing support beyond that point, it is not in any way, in any majority sense, in a digital way. I think it's about that communication with the officers. It's about a very clear, a transparent service that this council needs to provide, and not letting people getting lost in the system. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Terry. Thank you.
I just want to go back to this sort of numbers issue that I brought up initially. Looking at the numbers, 2,652 people were actually included in this survey. I take it they were all people who were demanding properties in Chorley. Am I correct in assuming that? Anyway, assuming that, looking back at reports for last year, we only actually placed 247 properties with Select Move. So that means that 90% of the people are not going to be sort of too happy with the end result if we just look at the figures. I think looking to the future, as well as all the improvements in the systems that you're talking about, which would always be welcome, we somehow got to start looking at getting more properties into the system.
Okay, anyone who wants to comment on that? Or not? as the case may be? No? I think they're all noted that. One thing I wanted, I thought it was a bit damning really about Select Move. Question 7, is there anything that Select Move did particularly well? And so many answers just said no. No in capital letters, which meant they really were. And I actually checked it up and there were 46 very negative responses out of 74. That is not good. You know, and it wasn't necessarily because I didn't get a house. It was the process. It was what happened to them. It was not getting on the various things. So I thought that was very, very telling about the system. Okay, any more comments? If not, I think it's been a very interesting discussion. I'm glad we got the report in the end. And to me, a lot of the comments and the things that came out are actually highlighting why we wanted to do a Select Move, a look at this process. When I read the results, I know they're not good, but I was pleased in that it was highlighting that, yes, it is an issue. And it's something we do need to address, even though a lot of people seem to think we were exaggerating. Councillor Ainsworth.
Yeah, I agree with you, June. I think this survey has been very telling, and I think we need to improve the system.
Yeah. Okay. Right, if that's okay on that, and thanks John, for actually getting it done in the end. So we'll go on to the next item, which is, it's Lisa, a discussion with Lisa. Don't forget to unmute.
I've took it off this time, thanks. Yeah, so just an introduction to me. My name's Lisa McCormick. I'm the Select Move Coordinator. I have actually worked in housing at Chorley for over 12 years and at Chorley Council for nearly 16 years. So I've got quite a lot of background with homelessness and Select Move. I was the allocations officer before we even joined the choice-based letting scheme, so back in the old nominations days. But yeah, so my role really is helping to coordinate the partnership, and that's by trying to help to improve processes across the partnership, addressing issues. I lead on, I chair and organise the steering group and operational meeting where we take any issues to. And one of the things I have been looking at, I know you've been mentioning it, is the processes throughout, from when we get an application and all the way through to when someone's offered a property. And they are things that, I will be looking at across the board. But yeah, at the moment I'm leading on the policy review as well, which is going to be a big change, and the upgrade of Civica, which hopefully both together will show some really good improvements and address some of those issues that have come back in that survey.
I'm doing it now. James.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just a question for you, Lisa. It's, on the basis of what kind of support the council can offer you. As part of your job, are you going to be expected to assist with the allocations across South Ribble and Preston? And then, on the back of that, if that's not the case, is your job sort of hampered by a lack of coordinators in South Ribble and Preston, that it creates more demand on the system in Chorley?
No, I'll be able to do it across the partnership with Select Move, Chorley, South Ribble and Preston. And I liaise. I've built lots of relationships over the years with people over at Preston Council and South Ribble Council as well. So yeah, that's not a problem there.
Anybody? I would just, at our last meeting, we had a very lengthy discussion with Andy Gale, the allocation policy review consultant, and we gave him some of our opinions, and there, as minuted, we look forward to that review, because about making things clearer. That came out that it was so important that we make it open, we make it transparent, because people have this perception that it's not. So we need to be looking at that, and we need to look at some of those comments that we made in that and hopefully include those in that allocations policy review. I can see recommendations there. Is that Rachel with a hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just to add on to Lisa's response to Councillor Neville. Lisa's post, it sits across the 3 local authorities.
Yeah.
It's jointly funded by us, South Ribble and Preston. So Lisa's jurisdiction cuts across the whole partnership, and as I say, or as she said herself, she chairs the steering group as well. So we've got a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say influence because it's not influence. We have no greater power.
A lot of weight.
Yes, we have a presence within the partnership, and it's the Select Move Coordinator post is very much welcomed by the partnership to pull those things together. Yeah. So yeah, there's no issue around lack of impact in those other boroughs.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just forgive me if it sounds blunt. So, to Councillor Howarth a minute ago, we said that we've got 2,600 people needing the service in Chorley in 3 years, plus whatever the demand is in South Ribble and Preston. Does this mean you think one person can manage 2,600 applications in a 3-year cycle? Thanks, Chair.
Jennifer?
She's not coordinating the applications. She is leading the partnership and chairing the partnership. The actual processing of applications will be done by Chorley council officers or the housing associations. So she's not the person who would be processing, and that's why we've been approved to have a Select Move advisor post rather than a coordinator. So the advisor would be just for Chorley, and they would deal with the applications through the Select Move just for Chorley and advising our customers with applications and processing. So we'll be adding extra capacity in Chorley to deal with the applications. But at least as the coordinator who would coordinate the 3 local authorities and chair the meetings, review policies and procedures. So she doesn't actually do the process and day job. Okay.
Well, it was interesting when we had the discussion about the allocations policy review that a lot of the comments that were made were similar across South Ribble, Preston. So it's not us on our own whinging and saying this, 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 and this. There were commonalities in that. Anybody? Kim?
Just coming back to James's point, and the previous overview and scrutiny meeting, I know I raised a comment about the Chorley, the housing charter and the housing standards piece of work that was done by a previous task group. I understood that was also going to come under Lisa's role. So do you not, given all the issues that have been discussed here over the last 12 months and the number of people that are on the waiting list, plus the competing priorities in South Ribble and Preston, do you think that you've got adequate capacity to also progress that piece of work? Because I think that's just as important about the housing standards that people are living or going to be living in, as well as how they go about getting a house. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Probably not, no. So there is a report that's going to our senior management team in a few weeks to look at a proactive housing enforcement role, to look at quality of housing. So that's been a request put in. We've also been consulted by the government last couple of months, but it was a senior management team this week to look at the funding of the department. So the government are looking at a new funding formula for homelessness. So whatever formula they go for, there's quite a few options in that consultation. Whatever option they go for, the government, that will mean more money into Chorley for us to support homelessness. So again, adding more capacity into the team. So money is on its way, and obviously, hopefully capacity is on its way as well. So we have made reports through to SMT. So probably not at the moment, but I'm hopeful we will have.
Sorry, I'm not being nitpicky. It might come across as such, but I think, I know Terry's sat here, but at the scrutiny meeting, I think I asked the question, and I think you and Rachel said, yeah, there was adequate capacity in the role. And I don't know if Lisa had just started or if she was, but now you're saying there isn't adequate capacity. It just doesn't, which is just like a month later. It's just not very good for consistency in terms of 1 month one thing and then what 1 month another answer another month later. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just answering on the quality one. So this isn't about select move coordination. This is about the quality of people's homes. So this is the living standards we were talking about in the quality review, about quality of homes within the private rental sector and the housing association sector. So this is about going out and doing inspections and visits. So separate to this review, but in relation to the quality of houses review.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything? If not, I think okay. Thanks for that, Lisa. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks for you three. With that, we've got another meeting tomorrow with Lindsay, with the MP, just to discuss issues that they're having, if there are any. Well, I know there are at the MP's office with Select Move. Any notions that he might have to help us out on the way with that. So I don't know. And I have any other business. The next meeting was due to be September the 1st, but I'll be away and I can't get back from Kent for that. I shall be away. And that was to review the draft of the final report. Add amend what we needed to that. So we've got some potential dates. Is Monday the 5th of September, any time between 12 and 4. Thursday the 8th, same time. Wednesday the 14th between 12 p.m. and 6:30, and Thursday the 15th between 12 and 4 p.m. So, would it be easier, Matthew, if people let you know which is the best and then do it rather than, or can we decide here, or does anybody know? Sarah?
I definitely can't do the 5th.
Can't do the 5th.
I could probably look at either doing the 8th or the 14th.
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's what I know. So, well, if you send those dates, could you send the dates to people?
Yeah, I'll send everyone an email if you sort of get back to me as soon
Scrap the
as possible.
5th.
The 5th, and then we'll...
So just the 8th, 14th, 15th, and the times that are best for you. So to get that report drafted. With that, thank you all for your attendance. I think we've had an interesting discussion, and hope to move things forward and get this report done eventually. Seeing as I'm no longer on ONS, really, so I shouldn't be here. Okay. Thanks, ladies.